Welcome back to the 2 Months Podcast presented by Boston Pizza South Common. I am your host, Joshua Marshall, and this we have a nice guest with us this evening. A nice Wednesday night, chilly night here in Edmonton, but we have Gene Principe from Rogers Sportsnet. Gene, how's it going?
Well, I got to tell you this, considering who your sponsor is, I'm not a brute, but I am a fan of the Boston Brute.
There you.
That is oh my gosh, that is like, and honestly, I'm not doing it for free Boston Brutes, but it is historical. I'm talking, I've been eating Boston Brutes for at least 40 years. And I remember when my buddies and I would, go out to the bar or go out for an evening when we were not 18 and we, just go out and when we were over 18 and maybe we'd go to one of the local establishments. And on the way home, it was almost a given that we would end up at a Boston Pizza. And to this day, Boston Brute's like my go-to. It's always my first choice. Sometimes I don't go to it just to try something different. I'm a big fan of the pizza and they got a great menu. But yeah, every time I hear Boston Pizza, I think of the Boston Brute.
Yeah. They just joined us their third episode with us. They just
Fantastic. Yeah, welcome aboard to them.
exactly. Nice little pun, as you can always interpret. That's pretty awesome. But I guess before we kind of get going, how are things with you? I know we're kind of chatting with that off air, but for the fans, you guys got the Christmas break coming up, and it almost seems like Gene, we got two trade deadlines because there's been tons of trades today in the
Yeah,
National Hockey League. So we're getting two trade deadlines. This is the early one, I guess you could say, because
yeah, yeah.
obviously on Friday, but
Right, because the roster has to freeze. I think tomorrow or Thursday at midnight or very soon it
yeah.
has to freeze. So people are trying to sneak in a few moves before the roster freeze. It's always, it's a difficult time. I mean, I'm glad that there is a roster freeze over the holidays, so guys and families know where they're going to be. They can make a decision and know that they can be there and not have to worry about having to leave and go somewhere else. But it's been interesting how these moves have been made. And I wouldn't say I mean, the NHL is a copycat league, but I think once one gets started and people are like, well, let's do this. Let's get this done. If we've got it on the table, why wait, another 7, 8 days through to the post Christmas break start of the season. And and I like there was, I think it was early 70s the last time the NHL played on Christmas Day. As you know, there's so many sports that go on almost uninterrupted, especially when Christmas falls on a weekend or later in the week, and you've got the NFL, the NBA obviously is a big deal on Christmas Day, and I actually enjoy watching others work, but I don't want to work. I remember coming back from Chicago on a 23rd evening and, getting in at 2 or 3 in the morning and having the 24th and 25th and then full of turkey and mashed potatoes. Generally, it was a Boxing Day matchup in Vancouver, 10 a.m. flight. I'm thinking if the players are anywhere near lethargic as I am, oh my gosh, like I get the turkey legs reference. But this year, Edmonton is great. I mean, home first off to finish up and an afternoon game on Saturday, an earlier start on Sunday, and then off until they have to travel on the 27th. So that's fantastic. That I wouldn't say it feels like a month, but it feels like more than just those few days because you don't often get that kind of time off when the weather's cold and the snow is falling.
Yeah, no, I'm happy they gave that extra buffer day and that Boxing Day for the players because that's something that I enjoy is having that family time and
Hmm.
also seeing that the players get that too. It's always kind of nice to touch base with some of the guys and a couple of days before, like at this time, and like, are you going home, for Christmas? And a lot of guys do is we know, Connor, there's it's almost a ritual with his family, either
Yeah,
here or him going back home and it's always nice to kind of see that the guys get to do that because it can be a long season. There could be those dog days,
yeah.
and for everyone, even the role you're in,
Hmm.
too, Gene. Like I know it's as Stoffer likes to say, it's the toy department of life, whatever that terminology kind of says. But it's still a job at the end of the day. But
Yeah,
you enjoy that family time that you can get in and the laughs and the memories that you can build throughout the year.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a time of the year where you should be with friends and family and trying to enjoy things not on your phone, people, conversations, in person, having a few drinks if you like. I'm more into the food and just having some laughs and trying to forget about everything that's going on either in the world or in your own world and try to enjoy it. It's uh, I mean, sometimes I wish I never was a big Christmas guy. Not, I wasn't bah humbug.
Hmm.
I liked it, and like so many kids, enjoyed gifts and being around family. But I wasn't really like my wife's one of those that walks around the house singing carols, and I was never that person. So I think she sort of brought that out in me and passed it on to my kids because they just see sort of the person you see on the the Lifetime channel or Hallmark movies
Yeah.
who's enjoying their holidays. So it's a great time, and then it's back to work. And I like the other thing too. When they used to play on Boxing Day, if it would be difficult to get home, and if you did, you'd generally sometimes players could meet on the road, but a lot of times they'd have to get back to Edmonton on the 25th so that they were ready to go the 26th to fly with the team. So, it really cut into people's time. So now the NHL, I think, is doing it right. They've added an extra day, which at this time of the year is a big day, and it is neat to watch other sports. But when you're involved in the one we are, it's nice not to be working.
Yeah, and I guess we get that with the World Juniors where they get that Boxing Day game, but it
Yeah,
it is as Elliot likes to say on the evil telecom on TSN. But but it is nice. It is crazy because I'm an NFL guy too, Gene. And it's like the Steelers play on the 21st, and then they play again on I think the like 3 or 4 days later, and that's kind of unheard
wow.
of in the National Football League. So
Yeah.
I think actually the Baltimore Ravens actually play 3 games in 10 days, and that's very unheard of in the NFL.
Wow.
So
Yeah, that's I
yeah,
mean, it's we often would watch LeBron on Christmas Day
yeah,
against Golden State when he was with Cleveland or Miami. I would say I'm a Steph Curry fan. He seems like an incredible human being, and I don't know if we'll never see anyone skate like
yeah,
McDavid. I'm not sure we'll ever see anyone shoot like Steph Curry. I mean, it is
remarkable.
beyond unbelievable. I mean, I would love to see those two guys meet and just meet and talk about not so much their greatness, but just I'm sure the mutual admiration they would have for each other and what the other is able to do when it comes to their sport. I mean, great athletes have such a mutual respect for those that do. Well, not just great athletes, but athletes. And to see those two guys maybe shooting a couple of baskets, or if Steph would be willing to get on the ice, I think would be wonderful.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. They're it's amazing what they do, and obviously like you talk about what they do behind the camera and away from the
Hmm.
rink and stuff like that. It's we just had Mike Stelter on our podcast, and
Oh yeah,
yeah, and you had him on the panel with his wife there.
yeah,
Just amazing people, and the Ben's Cup, and promoting
yeah.
that. I guess in that term, like since we're talking about it, before we kind of jump into a lot of the topics here, that's going to kind of take up some December here, and what that Ben's Cup's doing the All Star game. Are you looking forward to kind of seeing what it looks like, maybe through social media, or is there a chance maybe you can kind of get out to some of the games live too, Gene, and what
Yeah,
they're
it's
doing
gonna.
can continue Ben's legacy too, as raising.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Unfortunately I will be away right during the Ben's
Oh,
Cup.
okay, yeah,
I literally leave that day when it gets started, and but for sure through Ashif Maji and Mike and Leah and Ariz, Ashif's son, who set up this wonderful fundraiser where they raised almost just under $74,000 from 10 schools for the Ben Stelter Foundation. I mean, it's just, I see the video and I've seen it, I don't know how many times, the little Benny, and it brings me either two tears or very close. And every time I look at Mike and Leah and I see the toughest people in the building, because usually I'm at Rogers Place when I talk to them. And yeah, I don't know if I could get myself out of bed,
yeah.
let alone I remember, and not to get the tragedies happen, and I remember the Humboldt bus crash and covering the following the proceedings, the trial, and I remember one of the moms saying, "For me, a good day is getting out of bed and having a shower." Like
Agree.
that's how depleted, that's how demoralized, that's how depressed and defeated I feel. And so if I can even do that, I feel like I've accomplished something. So Tragedies are all over, and the fact that they're able to turn a tragedy into a victory is, beyond me because I don't think I could be or would be that guy or that family. So it's wonderful that they do that. It's wonderful, like, that you give them time, that we all give them time
Yeah.
to make sure that people know, don't forget, not that they will, but certainly try and do their best to help others in need.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, I think you guys did a segment, maybe it wasn't last week or the week before. I was watching it at work in the intermission. I was actually back in my room and I just bawled and I kind of went back
Yeah.
to you and you just kind of said it's hard not to cry when you watch it. I just sent Mike a text
Oh,
right after and just thinking of him and
yeah.
having him and as he came on, the Mauji family are just amazing people too,
Oh,
as you know.
yeah.
But yeah, it's
And Connor, right? Connor has,
Connor's another, yeah, just
oof,
Lauren and
Lauren, and it's been incredible. The Oilers Foundation, and it takes a lot of people. I remember, and this is a bit off topic and not nearly as serious, but I grew my hair and then cut it for the Zebra Center,
Mhm.
which is a center that helps kids that have been abused, and I thought, I just thought it was a good way to try and raise money. And I have an unbelievable platform through Sportsnet and through social media to tell people about it. And it was a lot of work from a lot of people to raise money. Like it's not easy. It's not as easy as I thought it would be. And I thought, well, how can I go wrong here? I mean, people watch the games and you throw up the website or the link, but it's not. And part of it is there's not a lot of money to go around for a bunch of people. And if there is, there's so many wonderful causes. So when I see the work that they put in, it's not by accident that they raise that kind of money. It's a lot of time and it's a lot of effort. And so it's wonderful when it pays off.
Yeah, it's a grind for sure, and sometimes the rejection part is tough, and
Hmm.
they're not rejecting because they definitely want to do it. It's just times are tough and where
Yeah.
they're at, and I know you work with Sports Central here in Edmonton. We dropped off some skates there today.
Attaboy.
That's an honor of you, Gene, and all that.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, no worries at all. They've been sitting in the house forever, and I just finally got around to do it, and obviously doing this interview with you tonight. But before we get into the NHL stuff, how important is that charity to work with that program? And you've been with them for quite some time now, and kind of seeing the rewards of it and the smiles on all kids'
Yeah.
faces. It's kind of cool because as I walked in, there's a little girl with her father and just the smile on her face when she got some skates and some other stuff from the staff there. It was puts life in different perspective for sure. But I know you work with them, but so you give a little plug and talk about the initiative that you like to do with that with Sports Central Alberta, Edmonton. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks for that. I got on through Mark Spector. Mark Spector Golf Classic has become one of the top, I would say, five tournaments in the summer in the Edmonton area for the money they raise and the people they pack in to help put eventually some kind of equipment to use for these kids. And when Mark kind of stepped aside from Sports Central and on the board, he said, "Would you do it?" And I thought, "Oh my gosh, like I couldn't think of a more natural thing." And it's amazing because I probably have done it for about 6 years. So I was just into my early 50s, and now I'm 57, almost 58, and I can't imagine. I thought I was committed when I started, but it it really wasn't the kind of commitment that you need to be successful in helping kids or helping a charity. And so it's been a wonderful, I guess, alliance working group. It's, a dozen people on the board. And listen, we do the light lifting. The heavy lifting is those volunteers and the employees that work there and put their time and effort and hopefully no blood, but their sweat and sometimes their tears behind helping these kids find a way, an out, an opportunity that we took quite. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, but we always had enough money for me to play soccer in the summer and hockey in the winter. And I used to look at my Sherwood PMPs and those sticks had, I mean, I didn't have much of a shot, no boosh bomb here,
Yeah.
so I didn't have to worry about breaking them. But I mean, they had to last. There weren't sticks just stocked in the shelves, and so when I got one, it meant a lot to me. And I remember getting a pair of boots or cleats from Italy through a relative, and I'm telling you, I used to wear them, clean them, shine them, and they were just so important to me. Like the equipment was so important to me. I loved taping my stick. I just took such um, a love for it and making it as perfect as possible. And so I just thought of how important sports equipment was to me to allow me to play sports. And I thought, oh man, if there was a kid, a boy, a girl, or anyone who is sitting at home wishing they could do something and can't because I haven't helped or I haven't tried to get others to help, shame on me. And so I do have an avenue, an opportunity through the work that I do to sometimes open doors or open emails or return phone calls. So I have to make sure I use it as much as I can to help when I can.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And I think the gene bomb was pretty good back in the day. There's some footage somewhere in the north side that there's
It
a
was Northside, buddy.
yeah, there's a footage somewhere in a Clareview rink or a Castle Downs rink somewhere that has a good gene bomb somewhere in it, or an ODR somewhere. But
Yeah, exactly.
let's move over to the Edmonton Oilers. Oilers report sponsored by Shadified Salon and Barbershop. They got 3 locations in Edmonton. So Darnell Nurse, Gene, obviously,
Yeah.
sometimes a polarizing topic at times, but I think he's been lights out for this team all year.
Mhm.
I think he's getting better and better. You see him on a daily basis and a nightly basis too. What can you say about the play that Nurse has had for this season and leading that back end as he is right now for the team?
Well, one thing when you said polarizing, it always comes to mind when he said, people in Edmonton blame me for everything, including the traffic jams on the white mud. And I thought that's one of the greatest lines ever. And it just gives you a perspective of how it is when you're Darnell Nurse. And I think he's been nothing short of sensational, to be honest with you. I just see a player that's engaged, physical, can skate really well and has been passing and making lead passes and getting out of the zone. Fantastic. He's physical. He can be intimidating. He'll drop the gloves. He'll protect his teammates. He blocks shots. Listen, if Evan Bouchard wasn't who he is, and the Oilers, I know like ifs, but the Oilers have, incredible forward power. So you're going to go four forwards and a defenseman, and so Evan's that guy, and Matthias is sometimes that guy, but Darnell has good upside too offensively. He just doesn't get put in as many situations that involve the power play, but I just think he's been great, and I know people always have something to say about Darnell, but I have to say it's been pretty quiet lately.
Yeah,
It's been really quiet about him, and that tells me that he shouldn't have to, but that he's winning people over, and they're just not saying anything about his play in a derogatory way. Because I mean, I'm not sure there is anything to say about how he's playing, and he chews up a lot of minutes and he plays against either the top line or the second line. So yeah, I think he's been wonderful and a big reason the Oilers have turned things around.
yeah, I think he's been a huge catalyst to the turnaround. And I know, maybe Ekholm and Bouchard's numbers aren't what we expect them to be as they
Hmm.
were before, but that's sometimes to be expected in terms of you can't be great all the time. It is a tough league, but the proof is in the pudding that Ekholm and Bouchard are great defensemen and they'll get there. And I think Nurse just kind of picking up that slack. Ty Emberson's doing really good on the back end too. And obviously we know what Kulak's been doing. Like he's
Yeah.
on another, anytime when it's not even anyone doubts Kulak. It's just when he gets in that situation where you need to get him to play more, as we see often in the playoffs at the best time of the year, where the best players are shining. He elevates his game, and I think Nurse came into the season with a chip on his shoulder, and it was unfortunate with the hit in Toronto and how that
Yeah.
was, but what was encouraging that he came back, and we came back right where he picked off in terms of just leading the team and being
Hmm.
a leader on the ice and off the ice too. And so it is good to see. Um, I think the guy's an amazing person. I've met him once, and he was very nice to me. And I think people like that you're always supporting. And sometimes it's not about the team; it's about the person and the player. And it's
Hmm.
the guy that you've known very well and documented his career up to this point. But we move over to the forwards. And like you talked about earlier, that there's no lack of offense. That offense is there, and you got Corey Perry with 6 goals. But I think the bottom six has been really good. Maybe people want a little bit more, but you got 21 goals out of 6 players in that bottom six, and I think that's pretty good, Gene. And what are you seeing with this group? And Sammy and Kapanen, sorry, Kasperi Kapanen coming in. Sammy was his father, sorry, but
Yeah, yeah, of course.
yeah,
Yeah. His dad, of course. Some of us will remember. I think he was 847 NHL games or
yeah,
something like that. I mean, Sammy was a good player when he was in the league. Carolina and Philly are two teams that sort of stand out for me. And Kasperi's, I mean, waivers is a I keep thinking of Gustav Forsling from Florida. Picked up on waivers and the kind of like waivers is so unknown and uncertain because a team is ridding themselves of somebody or hoping they can slide them through so that they'll end up in the minors, or it's at times they do want to get rid of that player. And I don't know, like I'd be curious what the numbers are on waiver pickups, how many play 0 to 10 games, how many play 11 to 20 or 20 to 50, 50 to 100 and so on, and what's their point production. Oftentimes they come and go and they just end up somewhere else, and sometimes you lose track and they never quite get their footing when they get to be sort of a player that's considered a waiver style player. But Kasperi's fit in nicely, and I think on this team, if you can skate, you got a shot at playing in the top six or top nine. And if you can finish like he's been able to do, he's no stranger. He's over 400 NHL games, so it's not somebody that is really unknown. I think the question would always be uncertain of what he would provide, but he's been wonderful for Edmonton at a time when they lost Zach Hyman that they really needed someone to step up. He's big, he's physical, fast, can score, played the penalty kill. So he checks off a lot of things if you're a coach, and considering they had interest in him anyways this summer, that's been a nice fit. And as for the bottom six, that's a great stat that you threw out about the 21 goals that they've put up, and that's a good number. I mean that's a number that a lot of this team doesn't. I don't want to say doesn't need any more, but really shouldn't when you think of who's in their top six. Like that's a wicked top six that they have, and we don't. You don't even have Evander Kane back yet,
yeah,
as we await him in the next maybe couple of months. So I think they've done their job. Matthias Janmark's been fantastic. Connor Brown is playing really well. Corey Perry sort of defying the odds of a guy who'll be 40 in December, January, February, March, April, like 5 months. So I don't think if you're Chris Knobloch, you would ask for much more from your bottom six. They've provided not only some offense, but I think there's a lot of guys down there that you can trust on those bottom six roles, whether it's late in the game and you got a lead or it's tied, or on the penalty kill, Derek Ryan has sort of solidified his role. People are always kind of chasing him out of town for someone younger and bigger. And, there he is, right? Still
yeah,
there. And
yeah,
there's something to be said for Derek having that kind of staying power. And, people can argue, oh, it's because of the cap or this and that. Listen, if you can't play, you can't play. You're not going to be playing. And that's the bottom line. Derek can play and continues to play. So I like the makeup of it. And they're not too, other than maybe Jeff Skinner, who would be a guy that was believed to be a top six forward. I think that's where he would be. And of course, with no Arvidsson, Kapanen has been a big pleasure to have around. So yeah, that's about it. Otherwise, those guys are all kind of earmarked for where they should be, and they've done a great job.
yeah. No, they have for sure. And the waiver thing is an interesting one. That's something to definitely look into and dig into, because it would be interesting to see what that number is. And the
Yeah.
Flames just re-signed Braden Pakal, and he was a waiver claim from Vegas, and they just gave him a 2-year extension, and he's a pillar on their back end. And I know he's their number 5-6 guy, but he leads every night with block shots and hits, and those, like, and it's just like a right opportunity where the team tried to sneak you through, but another team took him. And So it is good to see things like that. And I think I agree. Derek Ryan just, look at like the Oilers tried to get Carrick last year, and then Ryan ended up playing over him in the playoffs.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with Carrick, still a
Yeah,
good hockey
great point.
player.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just put the work in, keeps plugging through, and took less to stay here too, and you probably could have got a little bit more on the open market, knowing that there's a huge value in a right shot forward that can win faceoffs on the penalty kill too. But yeah, I think this team's good, Gene. I think I know there was not maybe the night everyone wanted against Florida, but the way they've been going is pretty good. If there's any upgrade, where do you think maybe an upgrade can kind of be? Is it? And I think it could be already there in terms of Evander Kane. You have
Mhm.
him right there. That's probably an easy one to say because I like the back end. I know there's always that talk. Maybe you get another right shot defenseman, but I think with the way they're holding up, this team is really good, and they're just trending up and trending up. And I believe in the goaltenders too.
Yeah, I'm with you pretty much. If we go to the goaltenders, Calvin Pickard's been really good, and I even I stopped myself from calling him a backup because he's not a backup. He just doesn't get maybe the opportunity that a number one gets, but he gets a fair amount of games. And Stewart, excluding what happened last game, and I I wouldn't put that on him. That Florida game was fun until it wasn't a fun finish, but it was kind of neat to see the two teams meet up again for a first time, and it's so interesting listening to the Oilers with their answers of their memories, and then of course the memories of the Panthers and what they accomplished. It really just is a reminder how it's opposite ends. There's only one winner and there's only one person that leaves the season winning their last game, and that's the only team that ends up happy. And the one that is one win away ends up just
That
distraught
yeah.
for at least a time being, and then you move on. I think athletes are unlike fans in that way. The fans, I mean, I joke I'm still trying to get over 2006. I mean, and that's a long time ago. I should be over it. Every time I see Pisani, I think of him. I think of almost tying it up 2-2 in that game seven. He had a puck that just kind of ricocheted off his stick and just deflected wide on Cam Ward, and we think of moments, Evan Bouchard in the post, and things that happened in Game 7 against Florida this past Stanley Cup trip. But I think they're in good shape. Stewart's had been great, right? Save percentage high. The defense has really worked well together. I'm a little curious to see what Alec Regula's like. He's kind of still recovering from a knee procedure, so who's to say how he fits in? Whether they need a big name addition, I'm not sure about that. They work really well as a group. Up front, I don't think you need any more scoring.
Oh,
I wouldn't think I mean, you could always use more, but you got that in Evander Kane. So I don't think you have to upset too much when it comes to the top 12 forwards. Depth, if you can get it. I look at Corey Perry. I consider him to be a depth player, but he's turned out to be more than that. And not to diminish a guy who was a Hart Trophy winner and a 50-goal scorer. I just didn't know how big of a role he would be getting. And he's had a pretty big role. In times, when Zach was hurt, he often was the net front presence on the power play and did a good job there. And so, if you can find, I'm not saying a Corey Perry like player, but somebody who you think can really add, whether they're younger, whether they're more experienced, whether they're somewhere in between, whether it's a right shot or a left shot or a centerman or a winger. I think at that point, then you do it, but you don't want to give up too much to have that happen.
yeah, yeah. The one name I would think that could maybe be an asset into the playoffs for them is maybe like a Scott Lawton.
Sure.
He's
Yeah.
three
From
million
Philly. Yeah, I agree.
$3 million cap hit and good two-way player, can play up and down the lineup, and a good penalty killer too. But I think once they kind of got over the Stanley Cup kind of blues in that aspect, I
Yeah.
they picked up right where they were left off at the end of last year, and
Hmm.
and this team is going to be a force to reckon with. I'd be very surprised. I know LA is looking good and Vegas and all that too, but as the season gets on, as we know, the Oilers are a team as the season gets on, they keep going and going and going. So,
Hmm.
and I just think, and in the final one, we'll finish up on this, and I think a testament is to that the entire coaching staff. But I think Chris Knobloch coming in and Paul Coffey staying on, and Stewart and Glenn Gullickson, and just the the they're today's coach, and
Yeah.
you would agree with that, Gene. You deal with them on a daily basis. Can you talk about how great? And it's not to say anything bad about Jay Woodcroft and Todd McClellan and the coaches.
No, no, no,
They're
no.
all
Who
great
are great
people.
coaches. I
Yeah,
mean, listen, I learned a lot from all those guys. They're wonderful gentlemen, and I think I remember Zach Hyman was really I'm trying to think of the word. I think reluctant to speak highly of Chris in the beginning because he always felt like people were turning that into something negative about Jay, and he was very careful and almost felt like every time he said something good about Chris, it would seem like in turn you're saying something bad about the other guy. It's not that. And I feel that way too. Like just in talking about the kind of coach that Chris is, the kind of person he is, he's a great guy. But so was Jay. Jay
mm-hmm.
was a great guy too. It doesn't, what you're saying about the current, if you got a new girlfriend or maybe a new wife and she's a great cook, that doesn't mean the last one wasn't a great cook.
Yeah,
You're just saying that this one is a great cook, and that's it. Like period, end of statement. It doesn't relate back to whomever was in the previous situation or position. And by the way, I've only got one wife, and she
yeah,
is a great cook.
yeah,
So I haven't gone through wives like some of the NHL teams go through coaches, but Chris is a Imperial, Saskatchewan, small, I wouldn't even say small town hamlet. Uh, Farm boy who has a great connection to the city through having played here in junior at the University of Alberta. Met his wife here. I'm not sure if it was a sorority party or a frat party, but on campus, he is a genuine man, cares about people around him and knows people around him. Sometimes, and again, this has got nothing to do with Jay or Todd or Dave Tippett or any of those guys, because all of them were really kind, caring guys, and I've always felt like they were very inclusive in I'm one of their guys, but not quite one of their guys, and I've never felt sort of left out by any of the coaches or general managers for that standpoint. And I think Chris has done a great job, and Paul Coffey, he always says, "Jeaner, what's going on, Jeaner?" And I said, "Paul, you're back at the beginning of the season." He goes, "Jeaner, unfinished business,
yeah,
unfinished business." I mean, this is a guy who's won a bunch of Stanley Cups, right?
yeah,
Who could have said, "Hey, that was great." And I think he's a guy, and I'm not sure. I'm sure they would have talked him into trying to stay, but I mean, he stepped in and stepped up in difficult circumstances, as did Chris. I mean, you're coaching the Hartford Wolfpack in the American Hockey League to start the weekend, and then next thing you know, you're in Edmonton coaching to start the next work week. So, and Glenn Gulletson, again, if Glenn wasn't doing what he's doing, he would be gone. They just would say, "This isn't working out. I didn't hire you. I've got another guy in mind." But that shows you how Glenn is kind of a chameleon. He fits in with everyone and everybody, the way he's able to adapt his coaching style and just fit. And I mean, you got a future or a former NHL head coach available to you. Why would you want to get rid of him? A guy that's got lots of experience, even though he's still only in his early 50s. And
yeah,
Mark Stewart, by the way, I saw Mark Stewart in Vegas with a T-shirt, and I thought, is he here for the UFC or or is he here for hockey? I'm telling you, and Mark had a great career and was a tough guy, but a really solid, hard-nosed defenseman. If he wanted to get into UFC, I don't think it'd be much training. I mean, he's a big, strong guy, and he's done, he did wonders with the penalty kill last year. And I think that's one of the things that I listened to John Cooper when he was in town recently, and he's passed 900 games with one franchise, which is hard to do.
yeah,
That's hard to do. Even when you win, it's still difficult to do. And he said that, one of the things that made him a better coach was trusting, believing, allowing his assistants to do their jobs. And I feel like Chris has done that from the start. I feel like and that, let's throw Dustin Schwartz in there too. I mean, he believes in the people around him, and there's no reason for him not to, unless they start to do things that, as a head coach, he doesn't like or doesn't want or sees a better avenue. But I think they've earned Chris's respect, all of them, and they've earned his trust, and they've earned his belief in them, and that's what partially has made Chris the head coach that he is. And then I think it's just him understanding, learning, dealing with sort of the ups and downs of getting to this point in his National Hockey League career. And I credit the Oilers. I mean, they didn't have a big search and a big chase and interview a bunch of people. They go, that's the guy. That's the guy we want.
Yeah.
New York, will you let us talk to him? Yes. And next thing you know, he's on a plane and he's headed to Edmonton. So I got a lot of time for Chris. He's a really kind guy, and I have to say, and every coach that I've dealt with in Edmonton, you can throw in the Dallas Aikens for a while. Oh shoot, the interim coach Todd Nelson,
Yeah. Oh,
Craig McTavish for a long time,
yeah.
Kevin Lowe, Ron Lowe,
Yeah.
Dave Tippett. I mean, honestly, I've never met a coach that's handled the Oilers and been on the bench for them that hasn't been a kind, considerate guy who's been really good to deal with.
Yeah. They're amazing people, and the game is full of them, and you just hear these great stories, and it's hard to, you know, it's crushing. Like it's crushing when they lose the Stanley
Mhm.
Cup. And I remember the first time I met you was in the '06 Cup run, and
Yeah,
I had a sign saying the choo choo train was been derailed, and you put me on Sportsnet with my buddy.
I remember that.
And
That was one of the great. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
back then, right? They made it through. It was a little different than the current Oilers, right? That was more of a surprise. We weren't sure what they were going to accomplish, and then rolled through Detroit, got by San Jose, through 5 games, they got past Anaheim, and there they are. It really was so similar. I know it was 3-0 and not 3-1, but the parallels, the game sixes, the heartbreak in game seven, the other team taking the lead. I think the one thing that we didn't have was a goalie being, bowled over and tearing up his knee and forced from the series in game one. But otherwise, I just see a lot of parallels of what happened between the two teams, and to get so close. I'd have to check. I mean, maybe you go back to the original six, but would there be many teams that have lost game sevens twice for the Stanley Cup final?
it,
Excluding,
yeah,
again, the original six was a bit different, but certainly once you got into expansion into the, 67 into the, when Vancouver and Buffalo then came in and the team started to continue to come in, I'd be kind of curious what that stat would be.
yeah. We'll have to maybe put a request out to.
We'll get Bob Stauffer on that if
Yeah,
he doesn't already know.
yeah, exactly.
He probably knows
He
it.
probably does know it for sure. But if not, Sportsnet stats will take care of it because they do an amazing job on the 32 Thoughts podcast.
They do, yeah.
Of getting that information out when it's requested. But yeah, and it's hard to think that they're not going to do it, Gene. You've seen Leon resign. Connor's up next. Bouchard's going to do the same. Skinner's
Mhm.
going to do the same, and like look at the smiles. Like there's a kid, and you did a video for him, Ethan Freeborn. His mom
Yeah,
just posted a video. Derek Ryan and Kane and McDavid went by his hospital room yesterday and just put the biggest smile on his face. And it's not just the game. It's I know the players were out yesterday doing the
yeah.
tour around the city, and going to see the kids that are fighting all these battles that they should never have to be fighting.
Yeah, I agree, and that's wonderful to hear. And I know that I've kind of kept up to date on Ethan through you and through another contact that I have. I just think it's something that, I know Charles Barkley, who I was a 76ers fan or am, and I really enjoyed him when he played for Philadelphia. And I know he somewhat infamously said, I'm not a role model, but these guys are. And for them to spend time with uh, people who just have some of the worst things happen to them, um, you just can't imagine what that does for the kids and the families. And I remember someone once telling me, "You're only as happy as your unhappiest kid."
Yeah,
And if you've got, you could have one kid who's a CEO and another one that's got a master's degree and is a professor. And if your third is down on their luck and struggling, you can't enjoy the success of the other two. So
yeah,
for those guys to do that kind of stuff, and just to not to necessarily wrap it up, but to wrap up this point on my part, that's one of the great things I've seen about Connor. Showing up here, you're 18, you're barely older than many of the kids that look up to you. And in the almost decade that he's been an Oiler, he's grasped the responsibility that comes with being Connor McDavid. And that's just another example of it. I see it often and everywhere that a moment with him is something that people will never forget.
You know,
And it's something that just becomes special for them. And just so, your viewers know, it's not just a one-way street here. Connor doesn't do this because he has to do it. Connor does it because he wants to do it. Derek Ryan goes because he wants to. Evander Kane goes because he wants to. Leon goes. They do it because they want to do it.
yeah,
And I just can't say enough great things about these people. And the NHL is a great league for that. They do wonderful work. And so it's great to hear these stories of people that are in the most difficult situations that they never thought they'd be in, and people trying to do whatever they can to help them out a little bit.
yeah. It's amazing what they do. It's remarkable. I get chills like where I'm going to be at the game on Saturday afternoon, and I'm going to take a little kid to and his father. They were little guys going through some stuff, and I'm friends with Tyler Toffoli, so he's going to meet Tyler Toffoli after the game.
Oh, great.
Just but that's just these players. Like it's a quick text to
Yep,
Tyler, and Tyler's like, yeah, just send me a reminder, and I'll put the request in, and then I'll come and
that's
watch
great.
the game. And it's we in so many stories. I've gotten some stories about Connor that he just doesn't want shared publicly, but it's
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. You and I are on the same wavelength. I've known some things about him that he's done, and I'll either ask him or often I'll ask, the PR department and say, hey, I've heard this, and then they'll come back and say, you know what, Connor would prefer you don't talk about it. Right? He doesn't want people to know all the great things that he does. And someone might say, well, why? Because he doesn't do it for the attention. He does it for the kids, for the families, for the people that he goes to spend time with. So I got nothing but respect for that. And he's not the only one that does it, but he definitely. The less people know about all the great things he does, and there's still lots that gets out there, but there's a bunch that doesn't. And
yeah,
that's because he doesn't want people to know.
yeah, 100%. Gene, thank you so much for spending this 45 minutes with us tonight, and all the best to you. Happy holidays to you and your family,
Yeah.
and well wishes, and hopefully you guys have some good things, and hopefully Santa's really good to you, uh,
Yeah.
and all that. So all the best, and thanks for taking the time with us this evening. It means a lot to get you back on here. It's been long overdue. So
Yeah, you're right. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Thanks for everything you do as well. There's lots of young hockey players that spend time watching the Oilers and opposing teams skate at Rogers Place because of your willingness to help and the people around you. So keep that up. And listen, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I hope Santa's good to you as well. And maybe we get a little replica of the Stanley Cup under the tree and then get the real thing in about 4 months.
you got that right. That would be pretty cool to see in this city. So for sure, it'll be emotional one too, but it'll be one that the tears are worth it. But take care, Gene. All the best.
You too, buddy. So long.